Immediately the call ended, Uche quickly threw on his shirt and zoomed out, praying that he was not too late. He was not far from the island, but taking the bus would waste a lot of time, so he stopped a bike. It was faster. When he got to Chief's house, Mimi was waiting in the car as instructed. Without saying anything, he jumped into the car and sped off. Over the next couple of days, Uche kept to himself. He was not eating well or sleeping. He refused to take calls or even leave the confinement of his house. He spent long hours in his studio painting. It was the only thing that could keep him sane, so he buried his pain in his art. For the colors gave life to the darkness that was threatening to swallow him. Tamara called him severally, but he could not bring himself to take her calls. None of this was her fault, but they needed to face the harsh reality. They were worlds apart, and he could not spend the rest of his days trying to impress someone who thinks the worst of him. He would eventually have to talk to her, but it was a weekday and she would be working. He would wait for the weekend to avoid distractions. As he sat in his studio, lost in thoughts, he did not hear someone come in until it was too late. The studio door opened with a loud bang, jarring him back to the present. He looked up and there stood Tamara, looking as effortlessly beautiful as always. "What is happening here?" she asked, looking around. Uche's eyes followed her gaze, sweeping the room. Truthfully, the room was a dump. There were dirty dishes lying around and cans of beer lying all over the place. I was really busy. I'll deal with it later," he replied. She looked at him. "Are you okay? You got me really worried. Why have you not been taking my calls?" she asked. She could see that he was avoiding her gaze, so she stepped forward towards him and touched his face. "Look at me, Uche," she said, turning his face towards her. "What is going on?" She could see the turmoil in his eyes. She became scared. "Wait, I know this look. Are you leaving me?" Still, he said nothing. His heart was breaking with each passing moment. He needed to tell her what was really going on, but he also knew it would shatter her. He held her hands. "Sit down, Tamara," he said, nudging her towards a chair. "We need to talk." "No," she replied stubbornly. "If you are going to break up with me, just do it right away," she said angrily, brushing away tears from her eyes with her hands. "Have you been playing me all this time? Is there someone else? Tell me." Oh, I see. It's the hidden painting. How could I not have known?" she said, all at once, sounding at the verge of hysteria. Uche looked confused. "What painting are you talking about?" She walked straight to the canvas, covered with a white cloth, and drew the cloth away, exposing the painting. "This pain..." She stopped dead in her tracks. It was a paint portrait of her, exactly the way she looked that first date at the restaurant. She was speechless. She looked at him, tears running down her eyes. "It's so beautiful," she said. He came up close to her. It was supposed to be a surprise, he replied. But then I see that it was still a surprise either ways. There is no one, Tamara, not since I met you. I have loved you from the moment I walked into the restaurant. I still love you even now. Nothing can change the way I feel about you. I need you to know that, he said, holding her hands. Then what is the matter? She asked, looking up to his face. He led her to a one sofa in the studio, and they both sat facing each other. Sometimes, he began, love is not enough. People get frustrated and fall out of love, and sometimes end up taking out the frustration on the one they are supposed to protect. I love you so much, Tamara, but this relationship will not work. We live in different worlds. This is about my mother, right? Tamara asked, her eyes red with tears. This is about her. I know. What did she say to you? She asked, her tone becoming suddenly firm and controlled. Uche was torn between the need to protect the bond that existed between Tamara and her mother and the need to protect her already aching heart. He chose the latter. Your mother gave me a blank check. What? Tamara exclaimed. And you took it? Of course not, he exclaimed. She asked me to write how much I wanted and stay away from you. He shook his head. Your mother called me a gold digger, Tamara. You see why this cannot work? I knew she did not like me, but I was willing to deal with it as long as I had you. But this, I cannot spend the rest of my life trying to impress a person who thinks the least of me. I don't want you always trying to defend me in front of her. Marriage is not just a joining of two people in love. It is a joining of families. And if she sees my family as trash, then I see, Tamara replied. I see you have this all figured out. I don't fault you at all. She got up and picked her bag. But this is too much for me, Uche. The tears were now coming down in torrents. She could no longer talk. So she fled the studio for the safety of her car, where she sat and cried for what felt like ages. Uche stood by the window watching her cry. It broke his heart into small pieces. His heart ached. But this was for the good of the both of them. He would never be able to forget her, but he would cherish every memory they had created together. Tamara drove straight to her parents' house. Her mother was in the kitchen making dinner when she walked in. Immediately Mimi saw her daughter. She quickly rushed to her. What happened? She asked, her voice edged with concern. Tamara looked straight into her mother's eyes. He left me, mother. And he left me for free. Are you happy now? Mimi stood looking at her daughter, shame and regret washing over her. I'm sorry, baby. It's pointless, Tamara interrupted, cutting her short. There is no need. As she turned to leave, she staggered, trying to hold on to something, but her legs were unable to hold her, and she collapsed, giving in to the darkness that welcomed her. Mimi gave a loud cry. She started shouting for help, but no one was around. She called Chief's phone severally, but he was not responding. Mimi had no idea what to do, so she called Uche's phone, praying that he would pick up. Luckily for her, he picked up, and she managed in between tears to tell him what was going on. He calculated the time it would take to get to the island from the mainland, so he tried to calm her down and instructed her to tell the security man to put Tamara in the car while he came there to meet them. Immediately the call ended, Uche quickly threw on his shirt and zoomed out, praying that he was not too late. He was not far from the island, but taking the bus would waste a lot of time, so he stopped a bike. It was faster. When he got to Chief's house, Mimi was waiting in the car as instructed. Without saying anything, he jumped into the car and sped off. When Tamara woke up, she found herself lying in an hospital bed. She looked around her. Uche was sitting right beside her bed. Her parents were standing on the far end of the room, having what looked like a serious conversation. Immediately she coughed. They all became alert, running to her side. Tamara looked at Uche, confusion visible in her eyes. "You're here," she said. "What happened?" Uche could not say a word. He just held her hand. "You'll be fine, my love," he responded, trying hard to keep control of his voice. She looked at her mother, her brain gradually recollecting the evening's incident. "Mom, what happened?" Mimi started crying. She could not hide her emotions anymore. Tamara became afraid. "Someone should say something." "Am I dying?" she queried, her face masked with worry, looking from one person to the other. "Daddy?" Chief Pius looked at his only child, tears in his eyes. "It's okay, baby. You'll be fine." "Stop telling me that," she said angrily. "If there's a problem, I have the right to know. So you all should stop telling me that I'll be fine. Let me know what is going on." "You are right," Chief responded. "You have the right to know. But I want you to know that we are here to stand with you every step of the way." "Dad, tell me what is going on," Tamara put in, interrupting Chief. Chief looked at her, his heart heavy. "The doctors said that your kidney is failing." His words hit her like a bomb. "What? How?" she asked, looking at Uche for confirmation. But he was just sitting there, looking devastated. "They are not sure how. There are a lot of things that could have led to this. But my love, don't worry. We are already applying to the list of those waiting for a transplant." Tamara looked at him as if he was speaking Swahili. A transplant? She repeated. Calm down, Chief added. We will make sure that you are fine. Your mother and I would have easily given up ours, but we did not seem to be a good match. However, we don't care how much it will cost. We are going to make sure that you leave here alive. For now, you will be placed on dialysis. So, all will definitely be well, my daughter. Tamara let out a deep breath. So my life is now dependent on if I am able to get a donor soon. What if I don't get one? The whole situation was so hard for Uche to bear. He needed to vent. He was at the verge of losing it. The only color in his life was fading away. How was he supposed to live knowing she was gone forever? It was as if a part of him was gradually leaving him. He excused himself and went to the hospital bathroom, stood in front of the mirror, staring at his reflection. Just a day ago, he was sure that he could be without her. But right now, he knew that he would never be able to stay without Tamara. Worse still, he couldn't bear the thought of her dying. The situation was actually worse than they were letting her know. If she did not get a transplant before 2 weeks, she would be gone for life, meaning that they had about 1 week to get a donor. He stood, resting his head on the mirror. What if they really did not find a donor? He began to panic. Then a thought hit him. What if I'm a good match? He thought to himself. Without thinking any further, he ran straight into the doctor's office and requested to be checked in order to determine if he was a match for the transplant. Within the next few days, the results were ready, and luckily for them, Uche's was the perfect match. Mimi was shocked beyond words. She was ashamed of the way she had treated him in the past. She had looked down on him. But here he was, putting his life on the line for her daughter. She looked at him from where she sat in the doctor's office. Thank you very much, my son. I'm sorry for the way I treated you. But you have shown me that indeed there are problems that money cannot solve. And I also see the kind of love you have for my daughter. Please forgive me, she said, her cheeks stained with tears. It's okay, Uche said, facing her. We all make mistakes and judge others. But I know you did it out of love for your daughter. You were only trying to protect your own, and I will not hold it against you. You see, now is the time for us to stick together for Tamara. She needs us now more than ever before. Chief stepped forward, his face etched with worry. He looked straight into Uche's eyes. I know you love my daughter deeply, but I must ask, are you sure you can do this? Remember, the chances of survival is 50-50. Uche smiled. What is love without sacrifice, Chief? If I have something that can save her life, I'm willing to give it to her. Life itself is a gamble. I could go out and have an accident and still die. See, I have thought about this and I've never been more sure about anything as I am right now. Chief looked at him, his heart swelling with love for this young man. In his heart, he prayed that they would all look back to this day with a smile on their faces. 3 months later, as Tamara walked down the aisle, her eyes filled with tears. She could not believe that she was about to be married to Uche, the man who had loved her enough to give his life for her. Their meeting by the express road still felt like yesterday, and what started as a mere fantasy had blossomed into something so beautiful. Indeed, one can never know where they would find love. As she stood face to face with him, staring into his handsome face, she was lost in his eyes, oblivious of everyone around them. She could only hear the preacher's question. Do you, Tamara Chukwu, take this man as your husband in sickness and in health, for richer and for poorer, till death do you part? She smiled and gave a simple answer, more sure in her heart than she had ever been. I do. That day would mark the beginning of a beautiful journey, one filled with love, tears, and happiness. They have become one. Therefore, they were willing to fight every obstacle that may come their way together. If you enjoyed this video, please give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment, and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.